Alright lads, it's Mana Goblin here. Today I'm running through the Death Knight self-resurrection principle. So you're probably thinking, what the hell are you talking about? How does any class in a game have the capability to resurrect itself? Well, Death Knight does. Okay, it's a massively overlooked thing, but a lot of raiders go for this talent option, but I don't see why it can't become viable in PvP in certain situations. The talent choices you want to combine are basically Purgatory and Death Pact. Now what Purgatory does, basically when you absolutely certainly die, you don't die, and for 3 seconds after that basically the damage you take gets absorbed, and if that damage is healed completely to the point back to having like at least 1 health, then you stay alive. And if you combine that with Death Pact, so as soon as Purgatory occurs and you use Death Pact, your health is going to go up, obviously, about 25%, and you're actually going to stay alive. You're going to get about 25% health back, and that's it, you're actually staying alive. So what's effectively happening is you are actually staying alive, even though you've died. So it is actually a self-resurrection. So see, right now I am very close to dying. Purgatory happens, I press Death Pact, and then I'm alive again. And I live to fight another day. Now what this is doing is it's nerfing your sustained healing, but it's also giving you a very, very powerful defensive cooldown. It's like on par with stuff like Divine Shield and Ice Block. So if for instance you're playing with a class who's very, 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 very likely to get trained, perhaps you're playing with a Warlock or a Hunter, then I think I can't see why something like this would become viable, because it's very rare that you're going to get trained, and if you do, you're going to have a very powerful cooldown to keep yourself alive. And it's not as if your sustained healing is completely nerfed, because you still have Death Strike. In a raiding situation, this is over the option of Death Siphon. This is definitely going to increase your DPS. Well, it's basically not going to decrease your DPS, because people always complain how Death Siphon, because you have to consume your Death Runes with Death Siphon to get the healing, that it kind of nerfs your DPS. But if you care massively about looking awesome on the DPS meters, then go with Death Pact. But I personally think it's a lot more important to have a stronger heal to keep myself alive in certain boss fights, certain situations where, for instance, on Kargath, when you have to go up, sometimes I don't go with the healer and I have to stay alive while I AoE all the adds, and I can stay alive with Death Siphon. With Death Pact, there's no chance I'm staying alive. So Death Siphon is definitely the better option for survivability, and so and conversion and everything. But it's not gonna have a nerf to your DPS. So the Purgatory and Death Pact combination, the self-res principle combination, is definitely a viable choice to go for if you don't want your DPS affected. Alright lads, I hope you found the video interesting. I have been rolling with this combination in Rated Battlegrounds, and I'm having quite a lot of success with it, to be fair. I barely get trained in RBG. I mean, obviously in RBGs everyone goes for the healer, and when I do get trained, like if someone hard swaps onto me, I can stay alive very, very quickly. I can stay up long enough basically to run away, which is basically what you do in RBGs. Whereas if you go for sustained healing, I actually struggle to negate the damage enough. So I definitely find this viable in those big team fights where you just need enough time to get the hell out of there, like run away from over DPS, and I find it helpful for that situation. So well, anyway, I encourage you to try it out in Rated Battlegrounds, in raids. You might even want to try it out in arena. If you find that if it's useful, then just go for it, because you are actually preventing yourself from dying. You are resurrecting yourself. I mean, I think that is a pretty cool thing. I don't see why it can't be a strong option. It is an option, and at the end of the day, probably has a little difference to the other options anyway. So, my name is the Mana Goblin, and until my next video, ciao!
My friend, I can't seem to stand. Nothing changes inside of me. I'm tiredly pushing the